even into episode 3, I still don't know what that would have been if we'd built it, because it hadn't been built. That was the feeling of excitement of something I can't even imagine is going to happen as a team. I was not like imposing like a top-down, this is what we must do to tell our very important tale. It's more like, oh, we have new features? Like, what kind of story can we do with these now?
Well, I worked on episode 3, and I was working on this gun called the ice gun that basically let you create amorphous shapes out of ice. So you could like raise a little ice wall in front of yourself. It would be attached to the floor, and then the Combine soldiers could shoot holes in it, and it would shatter and break kind of like glass, I guess. So that was the primary mode of you could build ledges for yourself to get down, cliff faces. It had another mode that was like a kind of like a Silver Surfer mode where you would extrude the ice in front of yourself and then run along it and use it to cross gaps, go over chasms and things like that. What else do we have? It was set in the Arctic because it was centered around Borealis.
I remember the little blobby, squishy.
Oh yeah. Brian was working on the blobs. So we had the iso surfaces that we ended up using in Portal for the paint. So we had that as an enemy. It was a blob enemy, and it could change its shape, and you could choreograph its shapes with some content tools. And then it could also split into little hoppy blobs that could, they were almost like little head crabby things, but they were little splats that would hop around. And we were doing all kinds of stuff with that. It could pass through grates.
You could get more gameplay out of something where you had maybe a couple of creatures with simpler behaviors.
Oh yeah.
And then you would spend time combining them with other game mechanics.
Story was never the boss of anything. It was always we worked on a peer-to-peer thing. We were all what can we do? What do you think would be cool?
It was still a collection of playable levels in no particular order, and a collection of story beats and story concepts. And we were still probably another 6 months we would have had a critical mass of mechanics, and then start putting them in a timeline. I think probably a year and a half easily, depending on how ambitious we got. Could have been, 2.5 more years. Yeah.
Probably. It's hard to be a lot less than 2 years.
Yeah. I think we were 6 months in on it when we moved to Left 4 Dead. I don't know, we were moving at a pretty brisk pace too.
I thought that we needed to go much bigger on episode 3 or do something else, because I don't know if this is the right way to describe it, but element fatigue. I think we had really explored a lot of what made sense in the Half-Life universe and setting.
Arcane was building the Ravenholm game, and even they were having trouble doing cool new stuff with this tool set. And if those guys can't figure out a bunch of cool stuff to do with this, I think we're running out of fuel.
Episode 3 is coming along. It's what's the new big thing here? It's got to be bigger than all the stuff we just did. Even episode 2, and it's oh my God, it just becomes.
Are we allowed to cry in this documentary? That's what I want to know.
Left 4 Dead needed kind of an all-hands-on sort of an effort to ship, and so we put down Ep 3 to go help Left 4 Dead, and it was a really tight shipping schedule, and it required a lot of work from everybody to get out the door, and it was worth it. I mean, it was.
Yeah, Left 4 Dead came out.
Left 4 Dead came out great, but it took long enough. And this is the tragic and almost comical thing about it, was it took long enough that then by the time we considered going back to episode 3, the argument was made well, we missed it. It's too late now, and we really need to make a new engine and to continue the Half-Life series and all that. And now that just seems, in hindsight, so wrong.
Yeah.
We could have definitely gone back and spent 2 years to make episode 3.
And you can't get lazy and say, oh, we're moving the story forward. That's copping out of your obligation to gamers, right? Yes, of course they love the story. They love many, many aspects of it. But sort of saying that your reason to do it is because people want to know what happens next. We could have shipped it. It wouldn't have been that hard. The failure was my personal failure was being stumped. Like I couldn't figure out why doing episode 3 was pushing anything forward.
But yeah, I mean, some of those people made Left 4 Dead 2 and then Portal 2. So
Yeah, we did other things instead.
It's not like that choice would have been free.
Right.
In terms of the players, like they may have gotten that and not
And given up something else.
Yeah. So it's hard to say.
But a lot of us have been doing Half-Life for 8+ years.
We saw a bunch of really compelling reasons to go explore more multiplayer-based projects too, because not only just what customers were doing, but internally, we found ourselves wanting to play a lot of multiplayers.
It sounds silly to say it because we're a relatively big company that has a bunch of stuff, but we're not that many people. There's 300 something people here. And so we're working on a bunch of different projects, and it's like, people are passionate about Portal, people are passionate about TF, people are passionate about Left 4 Dead and Half-Life and, CS and Dota, Deadlock. I mean, there's a lot of things there. And I also work on our hardware, so I've worked on Steam Deck and the original Steam controller and a tiny bit on VR. Unfortunately, for any decision we make, somebody is going to be unhappy, but hopefully we're making a bunch of people happy with the choices we do make.
If it weren't for the episodes, there'd be no such thing as Dota. And I know that sounds really weird, but it was the things that we learned in developing the episodes that led to, Team Fortress, to more rapid updates.
I think everybody that worked on Half-Life misses the working on that thing, but it's also hard not to be like, man, I've seen every way that you can fight an antlion or, whatever. And so you want to get some space away from it until you can come back to it with fresh eyes.
It was easy to think about VR being a vehicle for Half-Life because that was a big technological innovation and kind of a core reason for that product's existence. And I think one of the things we have internally tended to attach to the Half-Life IP is innovation. Gameplay innovation is oftentimes enabled by a technological innovation. Clearly there was a ton in Half-Life 1 and 2. And so, yeah, it's an interesting challenge moving forward to think about what that means for future Half-Life stuff, for sure.
The ending of Half-Life Alyx is somewhat a self-critical realization. So that was super satisfying, and all credit to the people who are specifically involved in that decision and those sets of designs. I think that Half-Life represents a tool we have and promises made to customers to capitalize on innovation and opportunities to build game experiences that haven't been involved previously. And I think that there are no shortage of those opportunities facing us as an industry right now.